It's the Go Gopher Podcast with Mike Grimm, episode number 196. I am Mike Grimm, voice of the Golden Gophers, and welcome back to the podcast. The Golden Gopher football team had a bye week last week and is now gearing up for a road trip this week to Oregon. It's a chance to make some noise away from home in a tough environment against a nationally ranked opponent. We're talking football this week with offensive coordinator Greg Harbaugh. He'll share some great football insight with us on the Go Gopher podcast. You're going to enjoy hearing from the Golden Gopher OC. Our Go Gopher podcast is presented by alumni-owned Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. If you're a business founder planning to exit your business, start by contacting Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. Sunbelt serves more businesses up to $5 million in revenue than anyone, and True North M&A serves companies with revenues up to $150 million. Get a confidential, no-cost, no-obligation business valuation started today. Make the most of your life's work. Visit sunbeltminnesota.com or tnma.com today. Longtime Gopher sports supporter Cub is a proud sponsor of the Go Gopher podcast. In a hurry, don't worry, Cub delivers. Get fresh meat, produce, everyday essentials, and more delivered to your door. Cub is the official grocer of the Golden Gophers and proud to support Gopher athletics for over 20 years. Shop happy. The Go Gopher podcast is also presented by onX Maps. Find out how to download the onX Hunt app for free by listening to the Go Gopher podcast. We're podcasting episode 196 from the Aquarius Home Services studio. We invite you to subscribe to the Go Gopher podcast. It's free to do so. You can go back and listen to the Go Gopher podcast from previous weeks as well. Last week, for example, we were talking Gopher football with linebacker Maverick Baranowski. That is still timely, so go back and have a listen. This week, more Gopher football talk with offensive coordinator Greg Harbaugh. He'll join me next.
I'm Clay Geary, walk-on turned scholarship wide receiver for Gopher football.
And I'm Ben Utek, U of M alumni, Super Bowl champion, and Tony Dungy Uncommon Award winner.
We understand championship culture, which is why we're part of the True North family of companies.
True North invests in only elite teams, like the champion team at Sunbelt Business Advisors, Minnesota's largest seller of companies. To learn more about True North and our diverse family of independently owned companies, visit TrueNorthEquityPartners.com.
Know what the happiest bird is? Chicken. Cub fried chicken. Wait, let me rephrase that. Know what bird makes people happiest? Cub fried chicken. Crispy, crunchy, juicy, perfectly seasoned. It's the kind of chicken that disappears faster than you can say, 8-piece, please. Or, let's be real, maybe 12-piece. Because when it comes to fried chicken, more just means more happy. So if you're shopping chicken, shop Cub fried chicken and shop happy.
Episode 196, we are talking Golden Gopher football. Our pleasure to welcome to the podcast Greg Harbaugh, Minnesota offensive coordinator, and a bye week last week, and now it's another kind of non-traditional week, a Friday night game for the second time this year. First of all, good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Great to be on.
What was the bye week like last week? We had Maverick Baranowski on last week, and when you're a linebacker throwing your body around the way he does, he said it was big. It was nice. Coaches maybe physically not as much, but was there some mental health issues to just hey, let's regroup, let's recoil a little bit and relax for maybe a day?
Yeah, I think it's I think the bye weeks are at this point in the year you go through a 6-week stretch. And I think, especially specifically with Drake, we had a conversation earlier in that bye week, and I think he didn't really realize what that 6-game stretch was really going to entail from a mental standpoint. Going Big Ten, from Rutgers all the way to Michigan State, and it's week in, week out, and you just have to keep preparing and keep your mind, and then physically just staying in the training room and then practicing every day. I think our guys really took advantage of that. One of our number one objectives from Coach Fleck was to get healthy, and I think we did that. But I also think when you look at the practice setup for that week, you want to make sure that you get those younger guys those extra reps. We talk about all the time offensively, and even as a program. I mean, it's very, very challenging to get very good at this game, and you have to take every rep seriously, and you have to have that approach. Otherwise, you're falling behind your competition.
Yeah, and it's every week's a grind. I mean, people will say, "Oh, Michigan State's 0-6; they haven't won a game." They're pretty good football players,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're in the Big Ten for a reason. Yep. So it is. I don't care if it's It disgusts me sometimes. People don't understand the work you guys put in, players, coaches. You beat Michigan State, and then they want to take it away. Well, that's 0-6. It's like, no, that's a Big Ten football team, and it isn't always going to be pretty. You get the win, get the win, and don't apologize ever.
I know we're never going to apologize for a win. I know Coach Fleck always says that, and I was proud of our players' resolve, just battling through the ups and downs. I mean, we played well in the first half, a 10-0 lead, and then it's gone like that. Yeah. Especially with the first drive and
a little fluky play all of a sudden.
Yeah, and I think it just shows the commitment level our players have, and the row the boat mantra. I can't give enough credit to our guys, and they just battled. But I do agree with you. Michigan State has very good players. And you go against Joe Rossi. I went against him in practice. I've seen it. I was with him for a number of years, and I just know how good he is and how he had those guys prepared. I knew it was going to be a challenge, and it was going to be a challenge for our players. Yeah,
and as it turns out, all things ends well, and you get the win, and you're sitting with 6 wins. You're bowl eligible, all that stuff. For an offensive coordinator, again, non-traditional week this week, Friday, but a traditional week, what's it like? What? I'm sure each day you've got divided up into certain things, how you want to do stuff, study film here, implement this. Take me through a typical week for an offensive coordinator and your schedule specific.
I think it's, I'm very routine oriented. I look at it this way: you have to go through first and second down. That's where you really start on Sunday, and I don't really put a play down on paper until Monday. And it takes a while to kind of get it all pieced together. That you first try to figure out, okay, what's the system of defense that a team you're going against is? How do they play? Are they a 4-down quarters team? Are they an odd front team? Are they a pressure team on first and second down? Are they going to play a lot of man? And then you attempt to figure out how they're going to attack you. That's the hard thing. And I think what I've learned, and I've said this publicly, is that teams attack us differently because of how multiple we've become. And I think that can be a challenge at times, especially with a young quarterback. And we've handled that well. Then I go into practice, and I learned this from Eric Kaler. As I've been around him enough, and then he's been a coordinator for a number of years. The one thing that he's really gotten to me is you go out and practice on Tuesday, and it's not set in stone. That's how you're going to do it. And you want to see how it looks. You want to see, hey, do we want to tweak this, tweak that? And I think we go and have conversations, and then we adjust from there. Then after that practice on Tuesday, you go in and you set up your third down game plan. And we always talk about Tuesday is like a training camp practice. You're up early, you're home late. And that's how it is. And it's probably the hardest day of the week because you have to go from having that energy for practice, getting your guys ready for practice, then you go with the energy on the field. Then you have to go back to, okay, now I got to think. Now I got to go through this thing, and we sit down and we go through a protection plan, and the protection plan takes the most. I think one of the things I was pretty proud of is how we handle our third down protection plan, each week, and how we can help the quarterback, how we can protect our tackles, how we allow the running back to get out. We spent a lot of time on that in the quarterback room of how can we get our running back out in the check down, those types of things. And then you put those things down, and then you go through the formations, the motions, the shifts to be able to get certain things, tells for the quarterback, tells for the offense, and then you decide the pass routes. Then after that, on Wednesday, you go through and practice it. Same thing. I remember last year we were playing Penn State, and there was I probably put too much on Max's plate on that Wednesday practice, and I literally adjusted the shifting and motioning in our pre-practice walkthrough, and so I kind of said, Max kind of looked at me and was like, hey man, I think this is a little bit too much. And then we kind of talked about it and we adjusted it right there. I think that's the thing you have to know is a player coach relationship is they have to be able to be honest with you and tell you, okay, this is too much. And that was one of those times where I look at it and I've used that information to be able to help Drake. Then you go through and practice, you watch it, and then you start to work on the tight green zone. And Callie's working on the goal line short yardage, the whole thing. Like we split those responsibilities up, then we come together and talk about it. It's the same process. And I've always said that I think when you get to Wednesday night, that's when the critical decisions start to come into play. I'm usually very exhausted by the time Wednesday night hits. So I usually finish up my stuff, get ready for practice, and then Thursday I start to work on the openers. I start to work on those critical decisions, third and ones, fourth down. And I think one of the things that I really take pride in is the 2-minute. And the 2-minute, I've kind of evolved my own way. Like, I don't know if other people do it this way. It's kind of the way I do it. And, I look at the 3rd and 4 call against Michigan State. And I've said this to the quarterbacks news every Saturday. I wake up and that's the first thing I do is I go through the 2-minute drill and I watch their 2-minute plan and how they're attacking, because teams will attack you a little bit differently in 2 minutes. They might have a totally different defense. And I make those decisions and I look at our 2 minutes since I started doing that. I didn't do that in 2023. It was something that I evolved, especially with Max, and then even this year. And I look at our 2-minute drives over the course of the last 2 years. That's when we've been pretty efficient. You look at UCLA, you look at USC, even though it wasn't a 2-minute drive, we were using some tempo at that time to get down the field. Penn State, before we got stopped on 3rd and goal, we were using tempo to move up and down the field at that point. Like, I think that's been something that's good for us. And I joke around with Drake that I told him we were going to run the 4 verts play like 2 hours before the game, and I told him why, and then he went out and executed it. Him and Lemecki were aligned that way, and I think it's a credit to the guys, and and then I think all the way up until game time, you have to prepare. And I think that's what I love to do. I love that process. And then when you get into the game, you have to be able to adjust and move forward that way. And, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You have to figure it out in game. And I think that's what we've done a good job of, and figured out how to win games late or be able to dominate teams this year.
Yeah, and that's an interesting angle on the adjustments, because you pour all this effort. Like you said,
right.
Wednesday night you're exhausted. You got to recharge somehow Thursday because you still have some field to plow there to get ready. So all that work,
right?
And then you have a game. And I don't bring it up because it only in the sense of from an offensive coordinator standpoint, you put all that work in. You're 4 offensive plays in at Iowa, down 17-0 at Kinnick. There's nothing on that sheet now. I mean, that's a whole different deal, right?
Correct. Yep.
So all that work is poof.
Yeah, it can be a struggle, but I think the one thing that I did say during that game, I coached Drake.
Yeah,
I was on the phone with him the whole time. I kept telling him that this is a leadership moment, and those are those things where you can still learn in those moments, even though, like you said, on the sheet, it's done.
Right. I mean, you're not setting stuff at that point. You're just we got to score.
You got to
score.
What
you can do.
You got to battle back.
Yeah. And then are there sometimes games, we don't got to go too far in the weeds, where you have an idea, you're like, okay, I think we're going to be able to. Or maybe it's the other way. I don't know how we'll be able to run the ball here, so let's implement some different stuff with passing. And then first 3 or 4 handoffs, all of a sudden, hold it a second. Let's call that again.
Yeah,
let's call that again. And then the game's over, and you're like, well, I thought we wouldn't run, but we killed them or whatever.
Right. That can happen. I think when I look at the Nebraska game, we went 3 and out on the first drive, but I knew we were going to be able to run the ball after those first 2 plays. Yeah. And I saw it. I saw our offensive line come off the football, and I knew if we could just play complementary football and stay on schedule and stay into the game plan, we were going to be able to run the ball effectively. It's just, it's a process with offensive football. I think offensive football, I forget who told me this, but offensive football is like surgery. Yeah. It's precise, and you have to be surgical with every single move, the first steps, the release plan at wideout, our eyes at quarterback. Everything is detailed and tactical, and if one thing is off, then the whole play can get screwed up, and it can be a TFL, a sack, an incompletion. And I think that's the challenge with offensive football is all 11 players have to be in alignment with each other in order to have success.
Michigan State game, the last time you guys are out there, you had a really nice drive. You're up 10-0, and then the third quarter wasn't, you didn't. I mean, I'm sure you're like, man, until that last drive, it was only like 44 yards of offense. So how as an offensive coordinator, I mean, you're banging your head against the wall, like, what are we doing here? This game plan should be working, or they're doing something we weren't expecting, and then all of a sudden you need it, and Drake and you and the gang steps up and bang, and you win it. But how in your mindset, what's in your mind is you're just like, why aren't we moving the ball better?
Keep calling it.
Yeah.
Keep calling it. I think that's everyone looks at this as it's just you can just call plays and move it down the field. I think you have to continue to adjust. That's the one thing I just stayed with the plan. And maybe on the drive before we went down and scored to make it 17-17, I got a little bit more aggressive with Drake. I think we picked up a first down, and I threw it, I think, 5 out of 6 plays. Right. And I kind of I'm alluding to the fact that I became more aggressive with Drake, but that's kind of what my mindset was. Like, all right, we haven't been running the ball effectively in the second half. Let me see if I can do this. We knew what they were doing. We just had to execute better, and then we executed under the pressure of the situation when our guys needed it the most.
Yeah, and what does that say about your quarterback in what is this now, 9 starts? That at times there was a struggle. He talked about the week before was maybe the toughest game he's played in his life.
Right.
And it was going fine, but not great, not awful.
Right.
But then
He
the
battled.
back-to-back deal, he shines.
Yeah, he battled. He's a winner. You knew it in high school. And he would tell you this too, like he didn't have his best stuff against Michigan State. Like I said at the beginning of our conversation, it's a challenge, 6 weeks. And I alluded to the fact, okay, you had a short week in there too against Nebraska.
Right.
And it's Big Ten. It's not like you're going Big Ten opponent, non-conference, group of 5. Like it is Big Ten all the way through. And those are all moments where the quarterback has to learn and grow from those experiences, but he's a winner. Yeah, I showed the offense after the game the next day that I didn't want people to forget the 4th and 2 against Purdue, and how that play was another play where it wasn't the most premier look for the play, and he made a play and he made it happen. And he got the first down for his teammates, and I think that can't go lost in how valuable he is as just a leader and a person. Take away his football ability. That's how he is every day. It's how he goes through his process. And sometimes like you said, Purdue, he didn't have his best stuff. We figured out a way to win. Michigan State didn't have his best stuff, but he figured out a way to win the football game. Rutgers, he had his best stuff.
He did.
And so I think that it's just he's got to consistently go through his process and prepare the same way. And he'll continue to get better. As
you have now worked with a bunch of quarterbacks and you watch quarterback play around college, and I know you study a lot of NFL stuff too. I think I have a good, I can judge people and judge kind of the what they have internally. And Drake seems to me to be that, there's an it factor. You can be a good quarterback without the it factor, but if you want to be a special quarterback, you got to have it.
Yeah.
It seems like like if it's tapped right, this guy's got the it and he can be special as the years go on.
Yeah, it's just you knew, between Coach Fleck and I, just conversations through recruiting, we knew that this guy was different. He has the personality. I think that's a testament to his family and how he was raised, and maybe the people that he was around when he was younger and all those types of things, the environment he was in with his dad's work, being around his mother, like they're all people that have great social skills. I go back to that. It's personality and social skills and how he can handle himself in a group. He can go be with a collective event, things along those lines. He can be with donors. He can be with kids. He can be with Coach Fleck, like those types of things where he can be around those type of people and handle himself so well. Then you put him into a situation where, it's 100,000 people and it's third down, and he doesn't flinch. He doesn't get a bunch of pressure put on his shoulders. He just plays. Right. He always says to me that, and it's amazing. He said he always has those nerves when he's on the bus, and then when he sees the stadium, they all go away.
That's good.
And he loves football. I think that's the one thing that's kind of lost in this day and age at times is he loves football. Our players love football, and they want to go play, and they want to succeed, and they want to play to the best of their ability for their teammates. And he's the leader of that, and we're lucky. I'm lucky to be around him. I don't lose sight of that.
Yeah.
Not only do I feel like he can come into our quarterback room and be himself, I can be myself with him.
What I think he is who he is, but the year he had with Max, did it expedite some stuff with him too? I mean, just to be ready to do what he's done this year?
Yes, 100%. I think it's one of those things where Max changed the room short-term wise. Drake is changing it in long-term wise. And it's kind of like Tanner. Tanner was in the room before, and I think he just would say the same thing. And he knew Drake when he was getting recruited, and he said the same thing. He said this kid's special.
Yeah.
And I remember when we were going to take Max and we were going through that process, I called Drake and I said, hey, Drake was not signed at this point. So you never know how
he's
those
committed but not signed.
Yeah. You don't know how those conversations are going to go. And I called him and I said, hey, this is what we're doing. and this is the decision that we've made as a program, and we're going to take Max as a transfer. He's going to come in. He's going to be the starter. You're going to learn everything from him. Okay? Drake was great. Then I call Max, and I talk to Max and I say, here, I talked to Drake. This is your responsibility too. Not only do you have the keys to the car, but you have the keys to the car that's parked in the side, the side garage.
It's going to be racing next year.
So he has to. Max had to develop him with me the same way. And those conversations, Drake sat there right there with him every Thursday afternoon. Max was in there with me. We'd talk through things. Drake was sitting right there. Drake wouldn't say anything. He would just listen. Yeah. Then this year, it's just Max has moved a chair up. Drake is just sitting right there beside me, and we're talking the same way. And, it's cool to see. It's interesting, too, because you see the other quarterbacks gravitate towards it, too. Yeah. Max Chicken-Jancy's right there with Drake the whole time, too, and learning and growing. And it's cool when you can develop a quarterback room that has a culture like that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so I want to ask you about a couple of the plays. And speaking of Drake and his personality, on the bye week last week, PJ, we give him the week off for the coaches show. So last couple of years, we used to not even do a show on the bye week, but we got to get commercials on the air. So we said let's have some players come out. So we had two shows last year with players, and this was our second show. And Drake came on both. He was so good the first time. We're like, if he wants to do it, and he's like, I'd love to do it. I enjoyed it. He talked about when he would go when Brett Bielema was show in Arkansas, and they'd go sit there and watch the show. It was a night show. Right. And he actually said they would bring a player every week, and he would say, someday I'm going to be up there. Mm-hmm. Well, it's a Gopher show, not a Razorback show, but God bless him, right? So he's like, I'm coming, I'm coming. But I halfway through the show, it's him and Coy, and I'm like, I don't really even need to be here. This guy is commanding the show. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable, right? Redshirt freshman guy. But he mentioned on the show, and I got to ask you about this too, because after the game, we'll talk about the game-winning touchdown first on the bootleg or the fake handoff, and he scores. And in the post game, he said, Coach Harbaugh told me just keep it. Blast 34, but keep it. And he said as he walked. So I didn't know. He didn't explain. There was no follow-up question. This was the general media scrum afterwards, whether that meant he told the whole team in the huddle. Right. They all knew. And so I asked him on the show, I said, and you don't have to say because I don't know what coaches want people to know or not know. And I don't think he knew, so he just said it. He's like, yeah. He goes, nobody knew. Yeah. He's like, actually, we had already broken the huddle, and I'm walking up to the center, and he goes, Coach Harbaugh said, just keep it. And then he goes, he started to say it again, and then the 15 seconds hit, and he goes, okay, I'm keeping it. Yep. True? Is that true?
Yeah, it's true.
Confirm that.
Yeah,
so take me through your thought process, and how was it nerve-wracking? Because Drake said you guys hadn't practiced the play.
No.
So walk me through. I'm fascinated by the whole thing.
We've talked about it before. I mean, I looked at it where it was third and goal in the 3, third and goal in the 2, I think it was. Yeah. And that play is designed to get a yard. Now, if I go back and pause it, the Feme would have scored if he would have handed it off. I mean, we blocked it up pretty good on the front side, so it's funny. And then we joked around the fake. We got to get better at the fake. But I did tell him, I said, hey, I didn't think they would honor him. And if the fake was
even the previous play,
right? There was, and earlier with our first touchdown. Now we ran a guard pull play on the front side. It was a different play, same formation, same motion, and that's one thing I've talked about before: layering everything and making everything look the same. But I saw 23 didn't look at Drake. Right. I saw it, and so I knew that was something I could come to later in the game, and then it came up where I wanted to use it. I did. The touchdown to tie the game was I told him to do that. No one knew that was happening either. He just communicated something to the offensive line, and we got it in. Players make plays. It's a player's game, and Drake made a play, a great stiff arm, and got in the end zone.
You have done that before, you said, at Western Michigan once and here once.
Yes.
Do you remember which plays?
Yeah, so in 2016, our first touchdown, the Cotton Bowl, Zach Terrell kept the ball. Same situation. The only difference was we didn't have helmet communication at that point. So Zach read the play in the huddle, and then in parentheses, it says keep. So on his armband, on his wristband. And then we did the same thing in 23 against Eastern Michigan. We didn't get in, so I was kind of a little bit scarred by it, but I said, Drake's going to make a play, and we did it.
It was funny because the previous play was a straight handoff, and they stuffed it up.
They stopped it.
And Darryl on the radio said, I wonder if they'll try to get Drake outside here, run pass option or something. And we didn't know it'd be a total naked bootleg, everything. And it worked. It worked. And like you said, and Drake even said on the show, if his if his fake was better, it's a walk-in.
Yeah.
He had to sweat it out a little.
Yeah. He just wanted to show everybody he's a dual threat.
Yeah, he is. He said that strength and conditioning is working to increase the speed. But I also asked him, you brought it up, on the quarterback sneak to tie the game.
Right.
Usually quarterback sneak is a yard or less.
Right.
That was like 2.5, almost 3. So I said, what was that? And he said the same thing. He said that there's I don't know how much you want to go, but he said on the air there's a code word that he and the center know, and it's just those two.
Yeah.
But he said Greg Johnson knows too because he was a center last year. So 3 guys knew that was going to be a sneak, and it opened up, and he went.
I highlighted this with our guys is I think the one thing that goes unnoticed is the communication piece. And you watch that play and the line, that's a short yardage play. I had a short yardage run. It was actually the run we called was the run that Drake kept the ball on. So I didn't use that run, so nobody saw that run.
Right.
And so that was the run that I called. And if you're calling a short yardage run, the O-line is literally ready to come off the ball as fast as they possibly can.
They're just drooling.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
So they're ready to go. And then all of a sudden you can pause the play and you watch Drake take his left hand away from Ashton under center, and you can see Drake communicate it, and there's so much poise up front. No one jumps. No one flinches. There's the communication piece of it is excellent from a redshirt freshman quarterback to his offensive line. Communicates the information. I see the opening. We sneak it. One thing that we've looked at is the sneaks have been tougher this year because we were so effective at it last year. We were so efficient at it. Yeah. So what are teams going to attempt to do? They're going to stop it. So we had to develop a little bit more of an under center running game, short yardage, loosen things up, go from there. Now we have the ability to do both. I think when we get down there in the short yardage and inside the goal line, we've been pretty effective. The 2 runs before the keep was, we lost a yard on the second bound play. We got 2 or 3 on the first one. It's just sometimes it's defense stops you. Yeah. And they did a good job on those 2 plays.
Yeah. I've noticed too, and you watch a lot of NFL films. When I watch NFL games, there's a lot of short yardage situation, and they run wide gaps up front sometimes. Yeah. And I always think even if he's in the shot, there's nobody in the middle. It's 1 yard.
Right.
Anybody. And Tom Brady, I don't care who it is, just go up and tap the guy, take the snap. But they never do it. And there must be a reason. I don't know. Maybe they would adjust. But I can distinctly remember one play, the Vikings, Kirk Cousins. There's nobody inside the guards, and it's 3rd and 1, and they're running, shotgun, and I'm like, just run up there, take the snap.
You could.
Obviously you'd have to work on that. But, that's a suggestion from the radio guy for you.
Okay, cool.
Your offensive evolution, because every now and then you hear if you don't put up 300 yards in a game, same old Gophers or whatever, just how fans get frustrated.
Right.
But this offense is not the offense of 3, 4, 5 years ago. This is a real different offense you're running now, right?
Yeah.
Take me through kind of the evolution of where you're at now.
Well, I think it's one where I wanted to develop a quarterback within a particular type system. I remember sitting down and thinking through okay, what kind of quarterback do I want? I want to develop a quarterback that could be ready for the National Football League. That's what I wanted to be able to do because recruiting wise, that's what you want to be able to sell. They all want to know, how am I going to get to the NFL? And you have to be able to show them why, especially in the quarterback room. We're multiple with everything pre-snap. We're multiple with our huddle calls. We have the ability to change the pace with tempo. We used to be no huddle, and now we huddle, and we can use that no huddle feature as a way to change things up on the defense. I think that's something that I've really enjoyed to see. It was with the evolution with Max. I love the under center play action, those types of things, and I think we have to continue to evolve and change based off of what Drake's strengths are. Drake is all his strengths are highlighted throughout what we do, but he's very good in the shotgun. He's very good under center. He's developed that. And then we have to look at all the pieces around it. How is our offensive line continuing to grow? How are they developing? What can our tight ends do? What can our wideouts do? And I think it's been fun because it's been a challenge. And Drake is one of those things where it's a process, however many games. We're through 9 games with him, and he's played very, very well. Like I've said before, he's never going to meet our expectations. That's what I love. Mm-hmm. He knows he's going to come in there every day, and nothing that he did yesterday matters. And we want to continue to develop him 12 games, 24 games, 36 games, those types of things. And that's what I'm so intrigued to see. And how he's grown as a person and as a player through 9 games, and then being bowl eligible at 6-3 as a redshirt freshman. I mean, he's handled himself really well. You even said in the media he handles himself at an elite level, and it's really cool to see and how the rest of his teammates gravitate towards him too.
Yeah, they love him. I mean, they respond, and you want that, right? I mean, as a coach, you want to see how are they responding to him, and there's nothing negative at all here with what he's how he's operating, and he also, even in mistakes, he seems to have a grasp of it. Like, I'm sure you've worked with quarterbacks where, well, that's where the throw was supposed to go. No, and it seems to me that he gets what's going on.
He does.
Yeah.
He does. He knows, like, usually he had 2 third downs against Michigan State where he wants them back, and they were both technique. And I think that we worked hard on that over the bye week of focusing in on what do his feet need to look like, how do his feet and eyes work together in conjunction to be able to get the ball thrown, and he knows when he messes up, he knows when he makes a good play too.
Going back to the fake handoff on the touchdown, I gave you a heads up that I was going to bring this up. So when I grew up in Iowa, people know that it's one of the character flaws, I guess, now being on this side of the deal, but. When I was young, that's what got me interested in sports. Was Hayden Fry had it rolling there. Lute Olson was the basketball coach. We my family had tickets to the games. So in 1985, they were ranked number 1, Iowa. They're playing Michigan State. George Perlis was the coach. Lorenzo White's running through them. Iowa's ranked 1. Michigan is ranked 2, and they're looming a couple weeks down the road. And so everyone's like, they win. And I forget there was Northwestern or somebody in between that, back then Northwestern was a gimme. There's no get well games now, but back then they were, you're going to beat Northwestern. I think that's what it was. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And they're behind. 31-28. They need a touchdown. And they have it. Chuck Long's the runner-up at Heisman that year. And I remember it. I thought I was right. And I went back and I just did a little Google search this morning. There was actually, Chuck Long was doing a 30-year anniversary of it. The video was 10 years old, so it's 40 years ago now. And he said the same thing. Hayden Fry, there's no communication. They call timeout. He's on the sideline. He says, call whatever their 34 blast is. Ronnie Harmon's the running back. And he said, but don't give it to him. And just bootleg it. It was the opposite way. He ran to the right, and the play was carried out perfectly, and he held the ball up. Drake didn't have time to hold the ball up, but he the side story, the year before, they also played Michigan State at home, and they went. There was no overtime, so they had cut it. I think it was 17-16, and they go for 2. Hayden goes for 2 to win it, and it was an option. And Iowa people to this day swear that he had reached the ball over on this option. Shane Bullock was the linebacker. His kids have played for Michigan State. That's how old I am now. And so in the post game, Chuck Long said, I was holding the ball up to make sure against Michigan State this year. The ref saw me cross the goal line. But it was a flashback. Ironic that Michigan State was the opponent again 40 years later. But so that play has been in the holster for offensive coaches for a long time.
No doubt. It definitely is.
Pretty funny. But Chuck Long holding the ball up, rounding that thing, it reminded me of, and if you hear, so I have some St. Louis background. I worked at KMOX, the great Jack Buck. I worked with him for years, and when he did local Cardinal baseball at the end of the game, if the Cardinals won, he would say, that's a winner. So when Drake scored, I channeled my inner Jack Buck and said, that's a winner. So it was fun.
We like that.
We had a good time. Let me read a real quick sponsor note here. If you've ever driven past a piece of land and wondered who owns that, or maybe you need to know exactly where a property line runs, that's where OnX Hunt comes in, and it's not just for hunters. Although last week with the deer opener, you probably were all using this. There are folks using OnX for their jobs every day throughout the country, farmers and ranchers mapping out fields, wildland firefighters navigating rough terrain, construction workers needing to know where property lines are. The app offers something for everyone. If you need the best land ownership map, aerial imagery, property boundaries in your pocket, it's OnX Hunt from OnX Maps, the tool for the job. Try it for free for 7 days. Download OnX Hunt in the app or Google Play Store, or go online, onxmaps.com/hunt. You can never take part in a deer opener as a football coach, right?
No.
Did you grow up hunting or fishing?
No, not really.
All
no, all football. Love golf.
Yeah. Golf. How often do you get to golf?
Ooh, not as much now. Usually I have a contract at home with my wife, Emily. She it was last year, I think I had 2. We have 3 kids, 2 rounds. Yeah, like, so I when we didn't have any kids, I played all the time. It's like, now I really enjoy spending my summers with my 3 kids now and my wife, and so it's really fun to just do that. So golf's on the back burner. Hopefully my son really wants to do it, so we got to take him to the range next summer.
One of my favorite moments of the week every week is we get to come in and watch Wednesday practice, and then we do some player interviews for a pregame show. And at the end of every Wednesday practice, your wife brings your kids, and the little ones come running out, huge smiles on their face at the end of practice, and you give them a big hug, and you've got a big smile. I mean, you might have just gotten into Drake like you've never seen before, but doesn't it change things then when you see your kids?
Yeah, it does. Best. It does. Like, like when we leave, like you talked about our schedule. When I leave the house Sunday morning, I don't see my kids till Wednesday after practice, and my wife makes it a point to bring them to practice. And I think it's cool because our players, like, they love seeing him. You know, they love, like, I mean, I think it was the bowl game last year, like for Christmas, Rory, my son, wanted a Max jersey, and he called him Quarter Max. The relationship he had with Max, now the relationship he has with Drake. I mean, they know Schick. They know Schick's number. How old is he? So Rory's 4, and then Lucy will be 3 this month. Yep. And then James is just over 5 months, and so it's really cool to see them and spend that time. And I think, like, the perspective you get, you know, win or loss. You know, I call my wife. Whether it's a home game, I call her on the road right after the game's over, win or loss, and now it's FaceTime, obviously. But the first thing I did after the Iowa game was FaceTime with my kids. You know, because that's the number one thing. They don't care if you win or lose. Like, you know, the first thing Rory said, I told our guys this to put it in perspective. You know, the first thing Rory asked me after the game was, "Did the Gophers win?" And I said, "Nobody, they didn't win." And he said, "That's sad." You know, and he's like, "Daddy, you got to win." You know, and it's just like he looks at it that way, and he follows them, and he loves Drake, and, you know, it's cool to see. You know, he loves Darius, like he always knows who Darius is, and it's cool to see our players interact with him too.
Yeah, and even the staff, like the the recruiting folks and everybody, they all come give high fives or fist bumps or whatever, and they know their names. And it's pretty cool.
It is.
And I don't know, I haven't been around every program, but I don't know if the head coach would always allow that at certain places.
I don't know. PJ's fantastic about it. Yeah, like our families are always welcome in the facility, and we had a Halloween event with a number of kids in the community too, and a lot of our staff's kids came by, and, you know, it was fun. I mean, he allowed us, you know, we went trick-or-treating with the night before the Michigan State game, and, you know, I know a lot of head coaches probably don't do that, and that's one of the things that Coach Fleck does, and he takes ownership in that and allows us to do it, and allows our kids to be a part of this life that we have that's not only our family's lives.
I mean, because if you don't carve some of that out, you might be 65-year-old Greg Harbaugh going, "What the hell did I do here?"
Yeah, right? you don't want to. You miss so much. So when you get the opportunity to spend that time, that's why, like, you know, I really don't mind. Like, I joked around about the contract with my wife and I about golf. I don't want to play golf. I want to spend that time with them and have fun and do things around the area with them, because you take your kids to the playground, it's like you're taking them to Disney World sometimes. You know, it's just that's how they look at it. They just want to spend time with Dad.
They want to hang out with Dad, no doubt. Speaking of Dad, you're the son of a coach, right?
I'm not the son of a coach, but my dad did play college football at East Carolina.
That's what it was.
You know, like,
he and I talk every now and then. Was at that Friday practice.
Yeah, he comes to Friday practice, and he talks with, but he played at East Carolina, so he's heavily involved in football. Like,
that's what it was. I was thinking he was a coach, but
he's learned over the years of, like, the coaching world is so different, you know, and some of the decisions, like, I would always say, like, even when I coached Division III and I would watch a game with him, and I would say to him, like, he would, "Why they call that?" I'm like, "We don't know why they called that." Like, there's probably hours of decision making that went into that moment at that point in time, and it didn't work. And I always talk to him about that, and, you know, he looks at it from a different lens now. I think it's cool, and he's so engulfed in it. He loves following it. He loves following Minnesota football. He loves following the Big Ten now, and he still follows his Pirates. You know, he still follows East Carolina a ton, and so does my mom and my family. And then it's funny because my wife went to NC State, so there's that little bit of a rivalry, and I'm indifferent now. I don't care. East Carolina and NC State play. I side with my wife.
Sure,
but it's one of those things where I don't care anymore, and it's fun to see that. But I do love how my dad is very much involved in that, and he loves asking questions and seeing how we do things.
Yeah, so we've had some great conversations on those Friday sideline practices where where we've talked a lot of football.
Right.
And, he's very proud of you. There's no doubt about that, and that's got to feel good anytime that happens. And then from that standpoint, I joked a little bit, but how often have you been? So your last name is spelled like the Harbaugh last name, John and Jim, and all those guys, Jack the dad.
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody has asked you about your dad coached at Western Kentucky, right?
Yeah, no, I get confused about it all the time. And the first day, it was in February of, it would have been 2015. I got hired by Coach Fleck at Western Michigan as a GA, and I'll never forget. I was standing in, there was the front door of Bill Brown, the area, that stadium, Waldo Stadium, but the center was called Bill Brown Alumni Center. And I walk in, and there's a lobby, and I'm standing on the steps, and I think he was going somewhere. I remember he was in a suit and tie. He was going to something, and he came downstairs, and I was with our director of recruiting at the time. And he was like, "Hey, this is Greg. This is our new GA." And I talked to Coach Fleck the week before on the phone. Never met him. And I knew other people on the staff. And he said, "Harbaugh, right?" And I'm like, "Yep, Harbaugh." He's like, "Not Harbaugh." And he said from then on, like, he's always corrected people too. Yeah. Like, that's always been cool about him. He's always, like, people would say Harbaugh, and he was like, "No, it's Harbaugh." Yeah. And I think I always get him mistaken, but it is kind of cool. Like, people would always say, "You should use that as your last name." I'm like, no,
you want to be Harbaugh.
Yeah, that's me, and so it's cool.
You mentioned Eric Kaler earlier. He was on this podcast in the summertime. We had a really good conversation. We were part of the draw. He was a Wartburg coach. I'm a Luther.
Yeah, I remember it. I remember that.
We had a little fist fight afterwards. No, and it was great. But in that podcast, he talked glowingly about the relationship you guys have and how much he's learned and how you guys have become not just coworkers but good friends. Take me through, and then you've got Callie, and you've got Matt Simon, and all these guys now that have worked together for a while. Right. That mix. But specific to Kaler, he was really, he was really sincere about the friendship you guys have created.
Yeah, it was cool. I knew of him. I just got promoted, and I remember we were at a recruiting event, and we were watching a quarterback throw, and there were a number of coaches there, and I started talking to them, and we knew guys like Rick Willis, Matt Wheeler, Wartburg guy, Mark Henniger, who was at Marion. I worked for him, Jack Ginn, all these guys in that tree, and then like Chuck Martin was in that tree, and like all these guys that we knew, but Eric and I had never met. We're talking, and I remember going through it. We had an analyst position open. We had probably sat there and we were watching this quarterback throw, and we were talking for probably 20, 25 minutes. And I looked at him, I was like, "Would you be interested in an analyst job?" And he like immediately, "Yes, absolutely." And so from there, it just kind of went, and I had no idea what he was about. I called some people on about him. I called like guys like Matt Wheeler and people that knew him and knew me and I trusted. And I mean, they couldn't have said nicer things about him and better things. And then it's kind of just grown from there. And we didn't even know it. Our philosophies mesh up so well, and how we work together. And like I said, he's beside me in the box. And the thing that I think goes, to have someone in that room with you that is sat in my chair and knows the decisions that have to be made, and when things are going bad, he sat there and he's like, "Man, I know that's lonely." He's told me that a number of times after the game, like, when things are not going well, it is a very lonely spot. And you have to keep pushing through. And he's always that guy that's, "Hey, stay aggressive. Hey, get to this run. Like, do this, do that." And we sit there and talk. And we have our disagreements, and we talk through it and work to the best thing. But I love the fact that I have someone like that, that I can rely on, that's been a coordinator, understands the problems, and how to find the best solutions.
Well, in fact, I think in one of the news conferences here, you said, I forget, was it the long play to Smith that he just kind of said, "Hey, get aggressive."
Yeah, he said just stay aggressive, and we had gone 3 and out the first 2 drives, and he just said stay aggressive, don't lose your fastball. And that's when I was like, okay, all right,
change
cool.
the game, really.
Yeah, change the game.
Hit that,
no doubt.
And the rest is history. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was cool when he was talking about that, and for a Wartburg guy, he's not too bad. Your career started at D3.
Yeah.
Take me through your path, and the listeners, and Danny Collins. They always talk about him. He was delivering food and sleeping in the janitor's closet or whatever. Did you have anything like that?
Oh well. It's not on my bio, but I coached high school football for 3 months in the summer. I couldn't get a college job after I finished college, and I interned at my alma mater, Averett University in Danville, Virginia. I interned after I finished playing for that spring. So I coached. Usually the best part about being a D3 football player is that when you're done playing football, that final spring semester is literally you are just hanging out.
Yeah.
And I was not hanging out. I was over there. I had class, and then I was finishing up graduating, and I went over to the football office, and I spent all that time with my coaches. And then I ended up going to coach. I was a JV offensive coordinator at a local school in Raleigh for 3 months. And then the day before training camp started, a guy that I had met working summer camps, I met him at the East Carolina summer camp. His name's Isaac Moore, and he's the D-line coach at Sam Houston State right now. And he's bounced around. He was at Texas. He's been in a number of different places. And he was in my wedding, one of my best friends, his wife, my wife, they're friends. He has a number of kids, and it's really funny. He has a huge family, and I just saw that, and me and him have gravitated towards each other because of that relationship. But he called me, I think it was a few days before their training camps opened, and it was at North Carolina Wesleyan. Mark Henniger was the head coach who I referenced earlier. Matt Wheeler was the offensive coordinator. Both guys that knew Eric Kaler, and they called me, and I moved into my dorm the night before training camp started. I had no idea who the players were. I met the players when they checked in for training camp.
Oh, man.
And then my career kind of took off from there, and coached there for 2 years, and we won 2 conference championships that year in those years, and learned a ton, and coached running backs. I went to Methodist University and coached the corners and coached on the defensive side of the football, and learned a lot about myself during those periods. And I had actually, the crazy thing is I met Emily, my wife, when I was at North Carolina Wesleyan waiting tables. She was way better than me. We worked at Texas Roadhouse. I think it's Texas Roadhouse. She's gonna be upset with me if I said it wrong. But we met there, and she was. We kind of went from there and got engaged when I was at Marietta College in Southeast Ohio, and was a quarterbacks coach, academic coordinator, recruiting coordinator, video coordinator. I did all. I taught racquetball. Which was Tuesday, Thursdays. You had to leave the office, go teach racquetball with normal college students, and then Coach Fleck hired me as GA in 2015. And I remember Coach Shiraka. I talked to him the whole day. It was interesting because it was Mike Hart was the running back coach at that point. And I met Mike in 2013, I believe it was, maybe 2011. I think I was the corners coach at Methodist. Met him at the coaches convention, and we kind of took off from there and became friends, and we stayed in touch. And I remember he texted me, he said, "Hey, our GA is going to come open at Western Michigan." He hooked me up with Coach Shiraka at the convention, and I got a chance to meet him. And I remember Kirk saying to me, "Hey, it's not open yet. It has a chance to be open. I'll call you." And I didn't hear from him. And then I woke up to a text at 5:30 in the morning or 5 a.m. at Marietta College. We had what we called mat drills, early morning winter conditioning. And he said, "Hey, Greg, would you be interested in our GA?" And I immediately woke my wife up. We had no kids at that point. I said, "Hey, if you say yes to this, our life is going to be drastically different. We're going to move." And then we got married, and she had moved in the first, I think, 8 years of our marriage 7 times.
Yeah.
And so
coach's life.
And it kind of took off, and I spent a year at Chattanooga. I spent a couple years at Western Michigan as the wideout coach, and learned a ton then. And every experience that I've had has built to the opportunity that I'm in now. And then you learn something new every day. And I always say it's a week-to-week deal in this business. You go through the off season, and everybody's excited during the offseason. Then you get into the season, and it's week to week. You play well against Nebraska, you come back the next week, you don't play well. And then it's just kind of you have to respond. And you play well, and you can't get too high, and you can't get too low. And all those things, I look back on my career as, you're at Division III, you're at FCS, you're in the MAC, and you can't get too high and too low. And this profession and this game, is awesome. But it'll crumble on you quickly if you don't stay motivated, and you don't stay the course, and stay humble, and continue to work as hard as you possibly can. And the last thing I'll say too about that is just the support system. and having that support system, because when things don't go the way you want it, you got to rely on the people that love you and care about you. And I know my wife does, and she's the number one supporter for me, and how she looks after, our family, and she's the rock and all that. But it's number one, she looks after me. When things go well, she brings me back down. And when things go bad, she's the one always uplifting to me.
Yeah, it's so important to have all that, as because as we mentioned, you poor coaches, like you say, if you don't work hard, you have no chance.
None.
Right? Because if you're not working, the other team is, and you put the hours in, you need that support system.
Yeah, you definitely do. I mean, I think I go back to when I was making $2,500, my first job, $8,000. Like my parents, the support system that they had, then you go through, and I was making a D3 salary, but then I went down to make, I think it was like $15,000 as a GA.
Yeah.
And I mean, taking that type of pay cut, whether it was $25,000, you take that pay cut. I mean, my wife had to. I mean, she was the breadwinner.
Yep.
And we were living obviously paycheck to paycheck, but it was some of the best times of our lives because there's no real stress. And then you throw in this, and you got stress with work, and you got pressure with work, and things that are out of your control or under your control, and then you got kids, and
Right.
It's just fun. It's just different parts of life, but I wouldn't trade anything for the world of how the people around me have helped me get to where I am now.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the journey. All right, real quick, Oregon, Friday night football, short week, but you had the bye week, so
Yeah.
maybe, one thing, they play the tough game against Iowa, and one less day, maybe the Hawkeyes out physical them, maybe they're a little bumped and bruised, but either way, you've got a game to get ready for. So
Yeah.
early week look at what the Ducks bring.
They're good. They're obviously a top 10 team, and they do a great job on defense. Obviously, with Coach Lanning's expertise on defense, and just you look at his path all the way up as a defensive GA, defensive coordinator, and all those things, and he gets those guys to play really hard. They're multiple with their scheme, and they're super athletic. They're especially the guys that pop out of their defensive ends. They're very, very good, very, very talented, twitchy, explosive. So I'm excited for the challenge.
Yeah, well, very good. We'll look forward to seeing you Friday. Thanks for coming on. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Fun to hear, offense philosophically and everything else. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right, there he is, Greg Harbaugh. It's episode 196.
My thanks to Gopher offensive coordinator Greg Harbaugh for spending time this week with me on the Go Gopher Podcast. I hope you enjoyed hearing that conversation as much as I enjoyed being a part of it. Some fascinating stuff for sure. Episode 196 is presented by Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. If you're buying or selling a business, visit sunbeltminnesota.com or tnma.com. Cub is a proud supporter of Gopher Athletics for over 20 years and a proud sponsor of the Go Gopher Podcast with Mike Grimm. Cub, bigger savings on the items you love. Shop happy. OnX Hunt also sponsors our show, Happy Hunting from OnX Maps. Again, I'd invite you to listen to past podcasts, and please be sure to subscribe or to follow the Go Gopher Podcast right now. It's free to follow and free to subscribe and free to listen at any time. And please share the link to the podcast with others so they can subscribe and follow and listen as well. And if you enjoyed the podcast, please let us know with some positive feedback on your social media channels. A like here or a like there goes a long ways. We'll talk again next week.
Know what happy is? Veggies. Crunchy, crispy, colorful, seasonal, aromatic, juicy veggies. Produce at its freshest. Cub produce. Best produce, period. Guaranteed to make you happy or will replace it. No questions asked. Because good produce makes veggie lovers happy. Just remember, fresh, happy. Stale, limp, and wilted, not happy. You want to make a veggie lover happy? Shop Cub for produce and shop happy.